Shalom, shalom. It's Brother Yahawah coming from 12 Stones, Los Angeles. I'm going to be bringing out a quick lesson titled Rest is in the Kingdom. All right, and I'm going to start off with the book of Micah, chapter 2 and verse 10, and it reads, Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you even with the sword destruction. So this place, America, which is Babylon, it's not our rest. Why? Because it's polluted. Right, and I'm going to show you why it's polluted and how it's going to be cleansed from this pollution. All right, let me get a quick precept. It's the book of Numbers, chapter 35, and verse number 33. It reads, So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land. And the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Right? So this blood, this land is polluted by the blood that was shed on this land, by the millions of Native Americans that was killed by so-called white people. Right? And it can only be cleansed by so-called white people, blood being shed for what they did to the true Israelites. Right? And let me get another precept. Showing that we're not in rest, right? It's Lamentations chapter 1, verse 3. Judah is gone into captivity because of affliction, and because of great servitude. She dwelleth among the heathen, she findeth no rest. All her persecutors overtook her between the straits, right? So we're not in rest, right? We can't just kick up our feet and expect nothing to happen, right? We can't just kick up our feet and expect that Yahawashi just gonna magically come down, right? We're not in rest. We have work to do. We have to wake up the Israelites and show them their true heritage. We have to go to work, right? We have to provide for our families and stuff like that. So this place can't be the real kingdom, right? This place is not our rest, right? But I'm gonna show you later on that in the real kingdom we're gonna have rest, right? And I'm gonna give you another precept, two more, showing that we're not in rest still. It's the book of Lamentations, chapter 5 and verse 5, and it reads, Our necks are under persecution. We labor and have no rest. Right, so right now, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Latinos, our necks are under persecution, right? Literally and spiritually, right? Because you got the brother George Floyd, what was they doing? Putting a knee on his neck, right? And it says, we labor and have no rest, right? We're the last hired and first fired, right? We have to go in and clock in at, some people clock in at 5 in the morning, don't get off till 12 at night. You see what I'm saying? So it's crazy that people will say that Babylon is the real kingdom, right? It's crazy that people say that Yahawashi is not coming back. So that means that if Babylon is the real kingdom, then that means that we will be in rest, but we're not, right? And let me show you another precept. This is the book of Job, chapter 3, verse 26. Well, before I bring that out, I just want to say we got to look at Job, because Job, he kind of represents Israel. Because what happened to Job? He got everything taken from what happened to the Israelites. We got our heritage stripped from us, right? But at the end of Job's story, right, he got double to what he got back. He got double of everything, right? And then what's going to happen to the Israelites in the end all be all? We're going to wake up back to our heritage and we're going to get the kingdom, right? So this is Job chapter 3, verse 26. And it says, I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet, yet trouble came, right? And trouble is always coming in the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Latinos, but it's because we're cursed, right? We don't want to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, right? Now, we have to understand that rest, it won't come until Christ comes back and takes us into the kingdom, right? I'm going to show you a quick precept. Right. Although this precept applies to that time, back then and that time, but it can also apply now, right? This is Deuteronomy chapter 12 and verse 9, and it reads, For ye are not as yet come to the rest into the inheritance which Yahawah your power giveth you. Right? Hold on. Yeah, that's it. right? So what that's saying is we're not at that place of rest yet, right? But when we go into that Holy Land, then that's going to be our place of rest, right? Because right now, you got, if you could just look around and tell that we're not at rest, right? Just look at the average so-called Black, Hispanic, or Native American. You can see that they're not in rest. You can see that they're struggling to provide for their families. They're in jail. They're gang banging. They're doing all these things that's against the law, statutes, and commandments, right? And let me get another precept in the book of Matthew. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 11. I'm going to start at verse 28. And it reads, "Come unto me." So this is Christ speaking in his red letter. It says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Right? So Christ is saying, if you come unto him, all them that labor, all them that's putting in his work and are heavy laden, right? And I will give you rest. So Christ is going to give us rest when he comes back, right? In his verse 29, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls." Right? So I'm going to read verse 30. It says, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Right? So Christ saying, if you come and do the work of the Most High with me, right? If you believe on me, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Because if you don't take the Most High's yoke, then you're taking the yoke of Babylon, right? The yoke of sin, right? And I'm going to read you some precepts on that, right? Because if you come and do the Most High's works, and it's easy, it doesn't say in 1 John 5:3 that the commandments are not grievous, right? It says that the yoke is easy. So if we do the Most High's work, then that will be easy. But if we're under sin, if we're doing the yoke of Babylon, it's just going to lead us into destruction. It's going to be hard, right? So this is Lamentations chapter 1, verse 14. And it reads, "The yoke of my transgressions is bound by his hand. They are wreathed and come up upon my neck. He hath made my strength to fall. Yahawah hath delivered me into their hands, from whom I am not able to rise up." See that? It says the yoke of my transgressions is bound by his hand, right? So we have a yoke of transgressions, right? We have that yoke of sin. That's what's on so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Latinos, right? And Christ is saying, if you come into him and take his yoke, it's easier than the yoke that you're doing when you're sinning, right? It's easier than going to work every day, to going and just doing things that we're not going to have to do in the kingdom. You see what I'm saying? So if we do the work of Christ, if we do the work of the Most High God, Yahawah, right, it's easier than doing the work of Babylon, right? And it's going to profit you better than whatever you're doing right now. And let me get another precept. It's Lamentations chapter 3, and I'm going to read verse 7. It says, "He hath hedged me about that I cannot get out. He hath made my chain heavy." Right? So the chain on us right now is heavy in this captivity. But Christ said if you take of his yoke, his chain, it's going to be light, and he's going to give you rest in the end, right? So let me go back. Let me get Isaiah 14:3, right? Because I'm gonna keep reading and showing you that rest is going to be in the kingdom. So this is the book of Isaiah 14, Isaiah chapter 14, verse 3. It's a future prophecy right here. It says, "And it shall come to pass in the day that Yahawah shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve." Right? In verse 4, "That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon." And what's that? Who's that? Well, right now, that's Joe Biden, but it could change, right? And it says, "And say, how had the oppressor seized, the golden city seized?" Right? So it's saying that the Most High said that he would give us rest from all our sorrow and from thy fear and the hard bondage that we were made to serve. Right? It said, Christ said his yoke is easy, so we're going to get that rest from from being in his hard bondage, from fearing day and night, as it says in Deuteronomy 28, from always being in sorrow because we're always losing loved ones, to gang violence, to drug abuse, to all these things, to all these things that we're going to be, all these things that we're going through right now because we're not in rest, right? And let me get you another precept. the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 2, and verse number 24, and it reads, "What shall I, Salakia?" Verse 24, "Abide still, O my people, and take thy rest, for thy quietness shall come." Right, so right now we just got to be patient, right? We just have to keep doing what's required of us, keeping these commandments and the faith of Yahawashi, and just abide still, and we're going to take that rest, right? We're going to take that rest from the Most High God through his son Yahawashi, right? And I'm going to jump down to verse 34. So this is 2nd Ezra 2 and 34. "And therefore I say unto you, O ye heathen, that hear and understand, look for your shepherd." So that heathen right there, it's not talking about the so-called white man, the Chinese man, the East Indian. That's talking about the Israelites, because the Israelites are sometimes referred to heathens, right? It says, "O ye heathen that hear and understand, look for your shepherd." Who's our shepherd? That's Christ. The heathen didn't get Christ, right? The Christ did not die for the heathen. So that's how that's how we know that that's talking about Israel. And it reads, "He shall give you everlasting rest, for he is nigh at hand that shall come in the end of the world." So who's coming back in the end of the world? Christ. And it says that he's going to give us everlasting rest. And we just read that in Matthew 11, where it said that if you take of his yoke, he's going to give you rest, right? And his yoke is easier than the yoke of Babylon, than the yoke of sin, right? And I'm going to read you another precept in 2nd Ezra. It's the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 8, and verse number 52, and it reads, "For unto you is paradise open, the tree of life is planted, the time to come is prepared, plenteousness is made ready, a city is builded, and rest is allowed, yea, perfect goodness and wisdom." Right, so in the kingdom, rest is going to be allowed, right? Rest is not allowed right now, right? We can't just sit back and just hope for money to come to us, right? We can't just hope on fast money, right? The quick money, as the scripture says, right? Rest isn't allowed in this kingdom, but in the real kingdom, right? In the kingdom of heaven, right? It says rest is allowed, right? That's when we're going to get our rest from all our labor, right? And I'm going to get you another precepts in the book of Hebrews. It's the book of Hebrews, chapter 4 and verse 9. And it says, "There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God." Who's the people of God? It's the Israelites, right? It says, "There remaineth therefore a rest," right? So we need this rest, because look at what we're going through, right? We need this rest. In verse 10, "For he that is entered into his rest, he also has ceased from his own works, as God did from his." Right? Verse 11, "Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief." Right? So we have to labor to enter into that rest. We have to keep putting in this work. We have to seal the elect, right? So this rest could come. Let me get a quick precept. Because as long as we're not doing the work, as long as we just keep sinning, then Christ is never going to come back. Right? Christ is just going to sit on the right hand of the Most High's throne, right? This is Revelation chapter 7 and verse 3. And it reads, saying, "Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads." Right? So we have to keep putting in this work to try and seal the servants of God in our foreheads. Because as you see, it says these are, if you read this chapter, it's talking about the angels, right? They're holding back all these plagues on the earth, right? And they're not going to be let out until the elect are sealed. But how are they going to be sealed if we're not on the corners teaching, if we're just sitting back at home resting, right? That's why I said this place is not our rest. We have to labor to enter into that rest, right? But not only are the Israelites going to be in rest, but the whole world is going to be in rest, right? The whole earth, I should say. All right, let me get this precept to prove what I'm saying. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14 and verse 7. It says, "The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing." Right? It says the whole earth is at rest, right? And this, as I said, Isaiah 14 is a future prophecy, right? It says in the future prophecy, the whole earth, like, it will be at rest. And why is that? Because we got to know, And right now, we can't be in rest because we see us getting shot down in the streets, but the stuff like that is not going to happen in the kingdom, right? But it's because the wicked are ruling right now, right? Let me get that precept. This is Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. So this world is mourning right now. You see what's going on in Russia, right? In Ukraine. You see China trying to invade Taiwan. You see all these things happening in the earth. But why? It's because the wicked beareth rule right now, and the people are mourning. People in Ukraine are mourning, right? People in Russia are mourning, right? The Taiwan people, they're getting scared because they feel like China's about to invade them, right? But it says when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, right? So when the true Israelites are in authority, stuff like this won't be happening on earth, right? Stuff like George Floyd, stuff like the riots, stuff like Black Lives Matter, stuff like that's not going to happen when the righteous are in authority, right? But that's why the whole earth is going to be at rest when the Israelites are back on top, right? So let me get another precept. Right? Because we got to know that stuff like death and crying and losing a loved one and stuff like that is not going to happen in the kingdom, right? Because we're going to be in rest. This is Revelation chapter 21, verse 4. It says, "And God and the Most High shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain. For the former things are passed away," right? So all those things in the kingdom, so like all those things that they're happening now, they're going to be passed away, right? Like death, like sorrow, like crying, right? We're not even going to have any more pain, right? So all those things are going to be passed out. So like it passed away, but you want to know why? It's because we're going to be in rest, right? But right now we're not. So let me get this last precept. It's the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 7, verse 33, and it reads, "And the Most High shall appear upon the seat of judgment, and misery shall pass away, and the long suffering shall have an end." Right? They're saying the same thing Revelation 21 was saying. Right? I'm going to keep reading. Verse 34, "But judgment only shall remain, truth shall stand, and faith shall wax strong." Verse 35, "And the work shall follow, and the reward shall be showed, and the good deeds shall be of force." And what's that saying? That's saying what the Proverbs 29 and 2 was saying, that when we're in authority, that the people are going to be rejoicing. But what does it say right here? It says, I'm going to keep reading. It says, "And wicked deeds shall bear no rule." You see what I'm saying? So the wicked, they're not going to be bearing rule. They're going to be in subjection, right, unto the real Israelites, unto the real blacks, Hispanics, and Latinos, right? They're going to be in subjection under us, and we're going to be ruling, right? We're going to be on top, and they're going to be on the bottom, right? And let me get closing precept. Because in order to enter into that rest, this is what we have to be doing, right? Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." Right? Then Christ came on the scene, and now we got to keep the faith in the Mashayach Yahawashi, right? And we just have to keep these commandments, pray for grace and mercy, repent daily, right? Pray that our people wake up, right? Pray that the Most High speeds up these times, right? In the name of his only begotten Son, Yahawashi, right? And I want to say Shalom, right? And I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, right? And subscribe to this new page, 12 Stone Shorts. Shalom.